welcome to Combat Zone 360, where we discuss everything military. Today with us we have disabled American veterans. We have a former veteran from the United States Marine Corps, Donald Day. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me, Jay.
Not a problem. I really enjoy getting veterans on here that can tell us a little bit about their military history and about the organizations out there for our veterans and civilians that view this show.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd love to answer anything you ask me.
Perfect. Well, what I like to do, I like to start off with having my guests, our veterans, talk a little bit about their military history. What motivated them to join? If they had any trials and tribulations while they were joining, and how they overcame those trials and tribulations, and just your Marine story.
Well, I'll tell you, Jay, I always knew I would join the service of some type. I come from a housing project up in Harlem, and all the older fellas, I have 3 older brothers, they were all going to be drafted. So they joined the Air Force. 2 brothers joined the Air Force. Another brother joined the Army Reserve. And the gentlemen, well, the fellas that I knew, the guys that I grew up with, all joined because they didn't want to get drafted. And some of those joined the Marine Corps, some joined the Army, some joined the Air Force, and some joined the Navy. So I always thought that military was something that every American should be part of. After all, who was going to protect your country if you didn't do it? Someone had to do it. And so therefore, when my time came, I thought I'd go in.
What era did you join in?
Well, I actually joined in the Vietnam era. It was the end of Vietnam. I went in under a delayed program where I signed up in December of '74, and I actually went in actively March of '75.
Okay. And did you deal with any trials and tribulations when you joined the Marines, or was it a smooth sailing enlistment?
Well, I was prepared. My older brothers prepared me. I knew what to expect. I knew I could take a punch. I was the youngest of 4 boys, so being a target was just always part of my life. But the Marine Corps, when I went in, the drill instructors saw something in me, made me the guide arm, and from the guide on, I went on to become the honor Marine in my platoon, basically being first in your class is the equivalent that you might think of. And so I graduated with honors.
Okay. And for our viewers watching, I know some of them are not military. What is a guide on?
A guide on is the fellow you see with the flag.
Okay.
So I'd pick out a point to march to and just walk in a straight line. A lot of other things went along with it. Every time someone was in trouble, he had to do more exercise. Mm-hmm. So his squad leader had to do it, and the guide on had to do it as well. So I just saw it as a chance to be in better shape than everyone else.
You became very strong doing the guide on, huh?
I did.
And what did you do while you were in the Marines? What was your job?
My job was 2531. I was a radio operator. This is about 80 pounds of equipment that you carry. And I was the communicator for whatever platoon I was in or whatever unit I was in. You call them units. I liked artillery the best, and so therefore I chose to be in artillery, and I became artillery communications man.
Wow. I talk to a lot of veterans back in the Vietnam era, and they tell me about their experiences while they were in Vietnam or going out to the field problems to do training out in the jungle and out in the woods. And I'm telling you, you guys have a huge respect I know myself and this generation of soldiers, because I don't know if I'd be able to deal with the Vietnam era back then.
Well, I was a forward observer in artillery, and so therefore I would call rounds and they'd just go right over my head toward the targets.
There you go. Nice. So you're here from DAV, Disabled American Veterans, and I know there's a lot of nonprofit organizations out there that does help our veterans, and I would love to find out about what DAV is about, the history of DAV, how you guys became DAV.
Well, DAV was started 98 years ago.
Wow.
So in 2020, it'll be 100 years old.
That is crazy.
A man by the name of Judge Robert Marks started it right after World War I. He was a wounded soldier. He came back, he saw the need for medical care, health care for veterans, and basically he began the march toward us having the VA that we have now. So Judge Robert Marks started it in 1920, and again, like I said, it'll be about 100 years old. And DAV just started out with helping veterans get their health care, and now it has graduated over that time into being an organization that has a massive, massive transportation program throughout the country. In 2017, we had over 615,000 trips for veterans being picked up in their homes, at their homes, taken to their medical appointments at their local VA, and then taken back home that day.
Now, speaking of that, I was reading a little bit about DAV on the internet, and I saw that you guys actually also pick up wheelchair veterans that might break down in their vehicle, where the tow truck comes and pick them up. Is that right?
That's true. We have special vans that are wheelchair vans that are available, who will pick up the veteran with wheelchairs, and again, pick them up at home, take them to their medical appointment, and then back. One of the other great programs that DAV has, which you may know about, is we have professional service officers. DAV has about, 260 professional service officers throughout the United States. And these are the personnel who take your claim, submit it to the VA, and help veterans with compensation. And in fact, that compensation changes lives. And it not only changes the life of the veteran and his family, or his and her family, but the local community as well. It's a great program. And just one more program I want to tell you about is that DAV does more legislative work in Washington, D.C. than any of your veteran organizations. So that is a huge piece of DAV, and that when you see a lot of these bills, it came through and from DAV.
Well, we're going to definitely get back to that, because I do want to figure out more things that you guys do for our veterans. But what I would like to do is, I know every nonprofit that does come around, they have what's called a mission statement. Basically what the organization is about, the values that they follow, and the services that they do give to their veterans.
Well, we like to say that we empower veterans and their families to live high-quality lives with respect and dignity. And again, our help, especially in the area of compensation and doing claims, again, it changes the life of the veteran and their family. I can't emphasize that enough, that it affects the community around them, and enhances life in the United States.
And that is true. That is very true. Now, when you guys do go out into the community and help these veterans, I know a lot of these veterans have issues finding jobs. How would you guys assist them in doing that?
5 years ago, DAV expanded its services to include employment. It was started from scratch. DAV now does 170 seminars throughout the United States, putting veterans in front of employers, and those employers at times actually hire veterans on the spot, because veterans are already trained in areas of everything.
Exactly.
We do everything because we're self-sufficient when it comes to being in the armed service. When I was in South Korea, I can remember the South Koreans giving us an area that was just unsettled. There was nothing there. We had to forge the roads. Our engineers had to go in, forge the roads. We had to go and put up telephone poles and string wire. And now, after 8 weeks of training, we leave those areas, and the Koreans have another place where they can put another village because they've already got roads and communications set up.
That's crazy
And
how
we
that
did it.
happens. Yeah, it's crazy how that happens because it happens over in Iraq and Afghanistan too. You know, we go over there, we take over an area to where we set up our bases, and then we break down what we need to bring back, and we come back, you know, and then that allows them to have, you know, paved roads and
Infrastructure
fresh water.
pre-approved.
Exactly, exactly. What other big pluses do you guys have towards?
Well, what I want to tell you is that DAV has, I'll call it ownership,
Okay.
of over 1 million powers of attorney.
Wow.
It makes us very powerful in that we have over 1 million members in DAV. DAV is a membership organization. So we not only help the veterans, but the families of all the veterans are improved.
Yeah.
And so I just want you to know that with over 1 million power of attorneys, DAV has brought in a lot of money, over 19 billion, that's billion with a B, over 19 billion in current and retrospective monies coming to our veterans.
Wow. And what era do you guys cater to when it comes to the military? Because I know a lot of the nonprofit organizations out there just service to the post 9/11 veterans.
That's why we love the DAV. We recently were able to get pass-through legislation. Veterans who were injured, ill, or wounded now before 9/11 who can get help, and for caregivers. Because we have a number of people. We had a national commander recently who was a quadruple amputee.
Oh my.
This didn't occur in war. However, it occurred in preparation for war. He was a Coast Guard diver. He went down, and when he came back up, he had a parasite in him that caused him to have all 4 of his limbs amputated.
Wow.
And so his caregiver is his wife. Before, when he gets up in the morning, his wife has to put his arms on so that he can put his legs on. Wow. And she does this on a daily basis, and she's not compensated. So now, with the caregivers, more caregivers, not all, but more caregivers are taken care of. I believe it's those who were wounded in battle, but not this particular person who I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
we're still fighting for that.
Wow. And what qualifications do they need to look at for caregivers? Because I know some individuals out there, they have behavioral health issues. They have PTSD. I know with that comes a lot of forgetfulness, remembering when their appointments are, taking their medication, a bunch of different things like those. Do those individuals qualify for caregivers, or is it more just amputees that have issues getting around from point A to point B?
Now, I can't give you details on that. However, if you go to dav.org, there's a plethora of information there that you can find answers to questions.
Wow, okay. Now, with the legislation, I know you said you guys, DAV as a organization has taken many things within the legislation up to Congress, the Senate, stuff like that. What things have you guys brought to them besides the caregiver?
Well, besides caregivers, the Mission Act was recently imposed.
And what's that?
We also, well, you know, again, I'm not an expert in these things, so I'm not going to go and try to be.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you any misinformation.
Okay.
Again, you can go to dav.org on that. There are some that we've bought that didn't go through,
Okay.
that may have been temporary possibilities. So, you know, it's up to our congressmen and senators to look at things and get them done. You know, every time something new comes in and a new regulation comes in under this administration, we have to get rid of 2 regulations. So it takes a while for things to happen. The Mission Act was passed, and it's still not in place yet because it takes about a year for them to find the funding. Because if you're going to fund something, you've got to take that money away from somewhere else.
Exactly.
And so that decision has to be made as well as the regulation rules.
Yeah, man. Now, when you guys talk to veterans, I know you guys are set up in DAV, set up in Manhattan. You guys are set up in Brooklyn, Long Island. How many offices do you guys have just here in the New York City area where veterans could come to you guys?
Here in the New York City area, we have National Service officers at Varick Street.
Okay.
I believe it's 145 West Houston Street, and Varick is the cross street. So that is the New York City office, where we have professional service officers. These other people that you're talking about, we have an office in Brooklyn, we're in Lynbrook, Long Island. These are all volunteers. We're all veterans. We're a volunteer organization, and DAV volunteers to do claims for people. And you ran into one of our volunteers.
Yes,
So,
Monique. She's been
When
very
a
kind.
volunteer does that work, it's then sent into Manhattan to our professionals.
Okay, nice. And she's been a great help. I know she helped me out with my claim, and it was able to get up in there. And I've had issues in the past trying to find the right person to help me out, and I've had nothing but great opportunities with DAV.
You know, she's from a long line. She did 20 years in the Army, and her father was a 20-year Marine as well. So she grew up as, I guess, a military brat.
Yep.
And then did it herself.
Nice. Now, do you guys have any DAV organizations or offices here in Staten Island?
Yes, we do. There's a chapter here in Staten Island. A lot of guys from Staten Island prefer to go to the Brooklyn VA, which is a chapter in Brooklyn, chapter 28. That's my chapter, so I'm giving it a plug. But some of the main guys are from Staten Island, and they just prefer that chapter for some reason because it's so big. You know,
Okay.
Brooklyn has one of the biggest chapters.
Wow.
So we have 1,300 chapters throughout the country,
Oh my God.
which a lot of companies prefer the chapters because now you're talking about people. So if you're selling soda or ice cream, you want people involved. And again, chapters, we have 53 chapters or so in New York State
Okay.
and 1,300 throughout the country.
Now, what do the chapters pertain? Who goes to the chapters?
Chapters, again, volunteers,
Okay.
all disabled vets, mostly service connected, not all. And you have to have a service connection to be a DAV member.
Okay.
You also need to be one of our professionals. You have to have at least a 10% disability that's service connected. Service connected means you were wounded, injured, or ill while in service.
Okay. Nice. And do you guys do any, I know you guys do a lot of career fairs. I've actually went to one of them while I was out looking for employment at Yankee Stadium. And I know that you guys do a lot of events for the veterans throughout the year. What are some of the main highlight events that you guys do here in the New York City area?
Well, here in New York City, besides being involved in the parade, that's just to get noticed. Individual chapters actually do different things. So in the Bronx, they have a hot dog, a cookout, and it's not a fundraiser. It's just something to give back, you know, to the guys and women who are involved in DAV.
Nice. What about Brooklyn? Because I know it's right over the bridge of Staten Island, and a lot of the Staten Island, you know, members or veterans go to that chapter. What do you guys do in Brooklyn for the
Well, on
veterans?
December 20th, you're invited to our holiday party at the DAV.
Thank you.
It's on the second floor. It'll be at the VA
Okay.
hospital. And also the Department of New York, which is the state of New York. The department is having a holiday party as well. And I believe that's the 7th or the 8th, whichever is Saturday. And I'll give you the information on that, too.
I appreciate that. So if somebody wanted to volunteer or actually become a member of DAV, how would they look at doing that?
Well, again, go to DAV.org, navigate your way to New York. You can put in your zip code, and it'll tell you the nearest DAV chapter to your location.
Okay. And would it tell them who they need to contact or anything like that? Because I
There's-
know when they go on there, a lot of people, they go on there and they see the information online, but when they go there, it's kind of like they're going there unknown of what to expect.
You know, it's interesting that you said that because just 2 days ago, I got a call from someone. I'm the contact for our particular chapter here in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
And so, you know, he thanked me over and over and over for answering his call.
Yeah.
And so with me, I try to answer your call. So, again, DAV.org, that's the place to go.
Perfect. Okay. So I don't know if you mentioned it, but on DAV.org, you're going to punch in your zip code. It's going to tell you what chapters are in your area. And then on there, it has the contact information for the person that you need to contact at that chapter.
Again, we have 1,300 chapters in the country. Every chapter has a contact person.
Perfect. That's the way it should be. You know, because I know whenever you contact some of these veteran organizations out there, it's hard to contact them, especially when you call the VA hospital. They have you on hold for hours at times.
You know, again, DAV is a
Yeah.
membership organization. This is how we thrive. This is our power. This is our strength, members. And so every member counts.
Okay. And then they would just contact you and they would be able to go and fill out the paperwork to join the chapter there in Brooklyn.
I'll let them know that they can come to the chapter meeting. If they don't want to make the chapter meeting, they can go to the hospital and see people in the DAV office, or I'll make it a point to go out of my way to make you a member.
Nice, nice. With the Staten Island chapter, a lot of the veterans going over there, have you guys thought about building up the Staten Island chapter as a DAV group and encouraging them to deal with this chapter?
We encourage every chapter to grow. So it's up to the members in that chapter.
Yeah.
Okay? What happens sometimes is you get a person and they don't want to relinquish power. And 15 years later, they're still the commander and the numbers have been going down. And there's a reason for that. At my particular chapter, I try to keep it young, and we constantly moving new people into leadership positions.
That's good. That's good. Keep the fresh blood coming in.
Got to.
Yes. Now, do you guys help out with financial planning also within DAV? If somebody's looking at buying a house using their VA loan, or finding that information on how to save up for retirement or anything like that?
We do give information out on any question. We try to answer any question, and we guide you and direct you to where you need to go.
Okay. That's good, though. A lot of people need that guidance, direction. Veterans, civilians that help out veterans, they don't know how to go through the internet and find what they're looking for. So it's good that they have
That's called
organizations.
navigate the system.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, at DAV, we do help you navigate the system.
Good.
We have a transition officer service. I believe there are 8 throughout the country.
Wow.
And as you come out of the service, we help you transition by showing you what we have as well as what other organizations may have to get you into the civilian world.
Now, do you guys reach out to other veteran organizations if you guys are unable to help them?
Well, not only that, DAV, like I said, does lots of legislative work. And we do legislative work and partnership with other veteran organizations.
Okay. What other veteran organizations do you guys really work closely with?
Well, in legislation, there's the VFW, which is the Veteran of Foreign Wars, Purple Heart, and Paralyzed Americans. Also, the American Legion works with us.
Wow. Now, I noticed, I was reading a little bit of information about yourself, and it mentioned in your bio that you were actually hurt at one time within the Marine Corps. If you don't mind, how did that happen?
That was just physical training. I busted my kneecap, and they took the cartilage out. I had a surgery at the Camp Lejeune Naval Hospital.
Wow.
And, they actually brought a piece of cartilage to me and showed it to me, and they wouldn't let me have it. They said it has to go to the lab.
Oh my God.
But I did ask him for it.
Yeah. And is that what gave you your 10%?
Yeah, it did. And it's a funny thing. I went to sick bay, and the guy started yelling, "That's 10%." And I didn't even know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was or anything. And in fact, I probably would not have put in my claim if it weren't for the uncle that I lived with when I got out of the service. He said, "Go and get that claim in, or don't come back." And I didn't have any place else to live. So I would have been homeless if it weren't for my uncle.
Wow.
And I went down, I put in the claim, and got 10%. For 23 years, I got 10% until I went to DAV. And DAV's help is really the catalyst. It's my payback by becoming a DAV member and wanting to help other veterans.
Exactly.
Was my experience with DAV.
Yeah, I notice a lot of these nonprofits, DAV also, they hire and they volunteer a lot of veterans. And I know it's their way of giving back after they depart from the service, because they have that need to want to make this nation a lot better place. And they can't do that just working at a store doing something, so they try to find that filling of their heart to do something for other veterans. And
I recently met probably about 40 or 50 of the new National Service Officers.
Oh, wow.
When I was down at headquarters. And one young lady, she came to me, she said, I was a corrections officer for 20 years. She said, but this is my get into heaven job.
There you go.
That's what she called it.
We did our get into heaven job when we were in the military. That was a rough. I know 21 years for me. And how many years did you do?
I did 4 years. 4 years active. Sure.
Yeah. And what made you get out of the Marines?
Well, the fact that they didn't keep me. They told me, we'll give you a sergeant stripe. We'll give you $10,000 a year of tech school.
Yeah.
And I said, keep it. I said, send me to OCS.
Yeah.
I want to be an officer. Wow. And, when he didn't agree with me, I said, I have a couple of jobs in New York waiting for me. I'll just go home.
There you go. I mean, sometimes you got to get what you need to be able to get where you're going.
Yeah.
And so if somebody wanted to get a hold of DAV, the best way to do it is DAV.org.
That's it.
Go research, look at what you guys are about, find out who's in that chapter, call that person. They can go to the chapter, meetings, find out really more about DAV by talking to other chapter members.
That's correct.
Okay.
DAV. This is our brand. This is our logo. It was changed about 6 years ago.
Wow.
Not changed. We still have the old logo, red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
But this is DAV. And DAV needs to get their brand out.
Yes.
And so that's why we do podcasts.
Thank you for coming on our show. It was really great to have you. I would love for you to come back, give us any updates on DAV. And, if we could do that in the near or, little future, show.
Well, if we have any time at all, go to DAV.org. If you want to donate, go to DAV.org. If you'd like to be a member or simply just know more, again, there is a plethora of information on DAV.org.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you guys for viewing in. If you guys have any questions for DAV, you guys can go on DAV.org, look them up, call your nearest chapter, and they would love to have you come volunteer, donate, or whatever you can do to help. Thank you very much for tuning in.